Welcome to End Alzheimer's. I have with me Dr. Boris Nikolov in the waiting room here. We're about to launch in and hear from him on the Simufilam trials. He's the CEO of IMIC. They ran the phase 2 open label studies for Simufilam, amongst other sites running that. This Cassava does not sponsor this. This is just Dr. Boris Nikolov's honest talking about what he sees at his site. And then we're also going to spend a lot of time on the QCM report. All the allegations from the QCM report. So let's dive right into it. Dr. Nikolov, how are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for making time to be here. I really appreciate it.
Sure, pleasure.
I know how busy you are. I've got a number of questions for you here. So I'm going to launch right into it. Can you please start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a physician, graduated in Bulgaria. I don't have license to practice in the United States, but I'm licensed to practice in the European Union and certain countries in Latin America. I have a medical research site now that we've been working for the past 14 years. And we participate in numerous clinical research studies with different indications, with different sponsors, and with emphasis on Alzheimer's. We do a lot of Alzheimer's studies.
Great. Super. Thanks very much. Now, so I'm sure you know that QCM is a hedge fund. So QCM is a hedge fund that went short Cassava's stock and released a 38-page report slamming Cassava, as well as you and your company, IMIC. So I'd like to run through the accusations that pertain to you, please. The first you just addressed there, they say that you're not licensed, don't have a medical license in Florida, but you are licensed, you said, in the European Union.
That is correct, and I don't practice medicine in the United States.
Okay, and have you ever claimed to?
No.
No. Okay, great. So they
We hire licensed medical professionals that do that for us in our side.
Yep. Okay, so you're licensed to practice in the EU. You never needed to be here, and weren't. They pointed that out for some reason. Okay, and now I want to get into. So another one is that your wife Amy, who's a partner at IMIC, is not a licensed nurse. Is that right?
That is correct, and she also doesn't practice nursing in here or anywhere else. She used to work with us as a clinical research coordinator, which is a different profession, and her education as a nurse, she graduated Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Miami and has the education and qualifications to practice work as a clinical research coordinator.
Okay, thank you. And then sticking with your wife, Amy, QCM, this is very serious. QCM also questioned Amy's trustworthiness based on her past. Can you speak to that as her husband and business partner? Can you speak to that?
Sure. Well, this is sad because she was abused as a child from her stepfather. And there was a huge trials here in Florida called the Case from Hell, in which the government intervened into her family and removed all the kids. And it's very sad that they're showing that of some kind of dishonesty or whatever they want to say, because she exposed her stepfather to the authorities, and ultimately the kids were removed from the house and he lost his medical license. Besides that, during the trial, she recanted. That's true. And because she was under a lot of pressure, it's kind of blaming the victim for whatever. And it's just not nice. After that, though, she recorded her stepfather admitting to that. So it's more than clear to whoever wants to research it. And it's everything actually in the media as well.
So thank you very much. So that's a really very unbelievably low and off base. So
absolutely nothing to do with the work now.
Yes. Thank you very, very much. And then there's Dr. Brinoni is a doctor at IMIC that has run some of your trials. QCM says that she is a board certified in child psychiatry, which they say is, quote, hardly a qualification, unquote, for treating Alzheimer's disease. Can you please
Well,
address that? Yeah.
sure. I guess this is one of the half-truths that they mention in this report. She is indeed board certified in child and adolescent psychiatry, but also she is double board certified as an adult psychiatrist, which makes her perfectly capable and experienced and uh, capable to diagnose Alzheimer's and treat Alzheimer's patients.
And a more impressive person than that. She's double board certified, not just board certified in adults. She's
Correct.
yeah, that's very, very impressive. Thank you. Okay, and then so sticking with Dr. Brinoni, let me not lose my place here. Dr. Brinoni also received a warning letter from the FDA about adhering to trial protocols last year. QCM notes that this happened during a period of time when you were running the Simufilam phase 2 open label study. Dr. Brinoni defended herself by saying that the protocols were unclear and the sponsor reviewed the dosing during visits and did not identify any issues. Did this have anything to do with cassava, as QCM insinuates?
No, nothing to do with cassava. That was not in reference to any of the cassava trials. It was in reference to a totally different one trial in which, two trials, sorry, for the same company, same product. That was just a situation of complete misunderstanding, but that was cleared with the FDA, and the FDA actually sent a letter accepting the modifications and the changes that were made.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, I noted in that report they said it was during those same times. Because it's redacted, we're not going to speculate. It was not, I forget their words were about whether or not, but it was during the times of the cassava trial. So they knew. I will also note that they knew that was a placebo-controlled trial that there was concerned about. And the open label study was
Right.
cassava's, was not placebo-controlled. So QCM knew for sure that was nothing to do with cassava, and they still insinuated that it had something to do with cassava.
That is correct.
Thank you.
The power of insinuation works sometimes.
And then Juana Pellegri also works with you. QCM says that she's not a PhD and not qualified to be diagnosing Alzheimer's disease patients. Can you please speak to that?
That is correct. She is not a PhD, and she is not qualified officially to diagnose Alzheimer patients, and she hasn't diagnosed anybody with Alzheimer's. She is, though, qualified because she has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a completed lectures and credits for PhD without yet defending her dissertation. So that's the only step before she actually has a PhD. And she is extremely qualified and experienced in performing the so-called psychometric testings, which are done to determine the level of impairment of the memory, the other domains that are looked into in Alzheimer patients, like executive function, how they do their activity of daily living, and it's a little bit more complex psychometric testings, we call them. Okay. There are different types, yep. And cassava has one of them.
Okay.
A couple of them in their studies as well.
Okay. So she hasn't defended her dissertation for PhD, but even as such, you don't have to be a PhD to be administering those tests.
No, not at all. Okay. The majority of those tests are done by people who don't have PhD.
The majority are done by people that don't.
Correct.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
All over the industry, as a matter of fact.
All over the industry. Okay, thank you very much. And then QCM notes your bankruptcy about a decade ago, and that your fortunes have seemed to get better at the same time you started working with cassava. They note that you recently bought a $1 million building. Can you speak to your practice's growth and how important cassava or other sponsors have been and the building purchase?
Yes, sure. Yeah, unfortunately, when the market collapsed in 2009, we, as a lot of other people, experienced financial difficulties. Um, After that, we've been recuperating. We filed for Chapter 13, and we paid all our debts, whatever the word for debt, paying off the debts according to the new agreements.
Yep.
And yes, the practice has been getting better in the past years, and has nothing to do with cassava. We have clinical trials with all the major sponsors and pharmaceutical companies and clinical research organizations for the past 12 years.
Wow.
And we have indications besides Alzheimer. We work in asthma, COPD, diabetes, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, NASH, liver cirrhosis, vaccines, constipation, COVID.
Yeah.
Now we have a lot of COVID studies as well.
Yeah.
So to say that cassava has anything to do with that, our growth, well, it's a little bit out of the question actually, because percentage-wise, for example, the income that we have from cassava is around 3% of our revenue.
Around 3%.
And maybe our work is appreciated by the pharmaceutical companies and CROs, so that's why they give us more business.
Yeah.
To continue working with them.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much.
As far as the purchase of the land,
yeah,
and the building, yes, we were fortunate enough to start that project. Though I don't know where we're going to be with continuing it later, but we are paying it off. It's a mortgage, and to say that we have paid $1 million for it is kind of ridiculous. But that was the purchase price, of which we are still paying.
Okay, so the bank owns a building, $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, the cassava kind of gave us $1 million to pay. Well, cassava, if you do it, please send me the $1 million. We'll discuss the terms.
Okay, so you hear that they're willing to accept the money if you do want to send it. Cassava. Thank you very much.
Not really, but it's just a joke.
Of course, yeah. Okay, and so then QCM also questions patient selection very seriously, suggesting that patients don't really have Alzheimer's disease and can get in the trials. Patients that don't really have Alzheimer's disease can get in the trials, and that cassava itself is manipulating the data through patient selection. Is this possible? Can you speak to that, please?
It is, first of all, not possible. Second of all, not true. There is standard for performing Alzheimer trials in the industry, and patients to participate in a trial, they need to meet a lot of criteria. We can put it under the criteria of National Institute of Aging, Alzheimer Association criteria for Alzheimer. So patients only that meet those criteria can participate usually in Alzheimer trials. This trial is no different. And actually, cassava, I believe, go further and higher, trying to select the correct patients by requesting lumbar puncture results indicative of Alzheimer's disease. This is much more definitive, because the only definitive actually diagnosis of Alzheimer is post-mortem in an autopsy.
Right.
So obviously we can evaluate how the medication is going to work on patients that already died. So how we do that now is through a lot of sponsors request amyloid PET scans of the brain, including all the psychometric testings, and or lumbar puncture, which is even more correct indicator, in my opinion, for Alzheimer. Because still we really don't know what causes Alzheimer. The theory that the development and accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain might not be the sole cause of Alzheimer. So if you look into the details of the relationship between the amyloid beta and tau proteins, probably that's more close to the truth. And a lumbar puncture actually determines that specifically, and it's much more definitive an Alzheimer diagnosis.
So they had the standards for the National Institute on Aging's Alzheimer's diagnosis. And then further, they did the lumbar puncture. This is the entire panel of biomarkers to diagnose on top of that. So there was no question these people had Alzheimer's, is what you're saying. Is bad.
Well, this is actually included in the National Institute of Aging Alzheimer Association criteria. It's a further step of the NIA-AA criteria.
A further
so, yes. So this is more definitive than only psychometric testings.
Yes.
And now they're insinuating that people that don't have Alzheimer enter into the studies. So how does a study work? If we don't know the patients, to invite certain patients, not only us, all the research sites do that. If we don't know the patients with the previous diagnosis, we would evaluate the patients before entering into the study, normally as a pre-screening, which we go actually further and above our obligations to CASAVA. Because what happens is when a patient comes for a study, usually is done a so-called screening visit. So entering into this screening visit doesn't mean that the patient will enter into the study with a drug. Just patient goes through a screening procedures, the lumbar puncture, etc., maybe imaging of the brain to determine if there are no other abnormalities in the brain that can lead to memory loss. And then the patient is given a medication. So this is standard for every study in the industry, including CASAVA. We actually go beyond that. We do something which we call pre-screening, in which we discuss with the patient, do a complete evaluation of its condition, his or her condition, to determine whether that there is a possibility of Alzheimer or something which we call mild cognitive impairment, which is a precursor or the better cognition way before mild Alzheimer. And when we determine if that's the case, then we proceed to screening.
I see. Okay. So you have another extra step there.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So thank you. Thank you very much. So they tried to call it into question in a couple of things that had actually extra safeguards. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then just so everybody understands, the presumptive diagnosis or probable diagnosis of Alzheimer can be based only on the description of the patient and the caregiver, as far as what they are saying that the patient has been doing or hasn't been doing compared to previous times. Right. So this is the clinical diagnosis of Alzheimer. Just so you guys understand, and your viewers understand. In clinical practice, nobody does PET scans. It's not approved. It's very expensive, and all the clinicians that treat Alzheimer patients rely entirely on the description of the patient and the caregiver, and psychometric testings, if they want to go further.
Okay, I see.
And in research, that goes above that.
It would be the biomarker, lumbar puncture would be above that, right. And you do a step above it as well for the screening.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. And that's sort of as an add-in there. CASAVA is developing a blood test. There's not a good test. Like for HIV, for example, there's a test and you can find out if you have it for certain or not. Like you're saying, until someone has passed away and you do, then you can't really know for sure if they had it or not. So the importance of a test. And so that's why they diagnose the way they do now. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, this is actually a lot of pharmaceutical companies are looking right now into biomarkers in the blood that can determine whether the patient has Alzheimer's.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
But it's not there yet.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. And then going forward, you will not be running, you never started, but you will not be running the phase 3 trials for CASAVA. Can you tell us why?
Sure. We had evaluations and reviews here, and it's just not financially for us.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, comparing the financial income for study visits in cassava trials and other trials, actually all the other trials pay more
All of them.
than the cassava trial.
So once again, here's an example where cassava is paying you less than others, and they're trying to make it look like cassava is paying you more. Here's an example of taking something that is actually in cassava's in yours favor, and they're trying to make it look like it's not in your favor, like so many of these other
Yeah,
accusations.
correct.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Okay, and then we heard from Hillary Metz and how life-changing Simufilam has been for her father. It is your clinic that she took him to. We heard anecdotes also from Dr. Gonzalez Rojas about the phase 2 studies as well. Cassava brought her onto a call and said, and then she talked about she had no conflict of interest, and much to her surprise, they were seeing people getting better. They were seeing, and so, do you have any anecdotes that you are able to share about patients having improvements or not having improvements? And can you please also speak about any safety or tolerability issues?
Right. We see a lot of patients through these studies. We have seen improvements in many of the patients, including descriptive by the patient, the caregiver, and with some of the tests. Obviously, I don't have a results comparison on all those patients and all the studies.
Yep.
And probably I can't divulge them, but
Yep.
there is, for example, a patient caregiver that came to us the other week and told us that the patient started cooking again. She used to burn every time that she cooked on the stove, and now she can cook again. Small meals, simple meals, but she was not able to do that before.
Good.
And there is a lot of cases like that.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Nikolov, thank you so much for everything. And then, excellent news, everyone. Dr. Nikolov has agreed to take questions from the chat. And I said, well, don't worry, because I won't take any, if there's anybody being, mean in the chat, I won't take questions from them. And he said, let's take every single question. I have nothing to hide. So let's take, now that said, please ask thoughtful questions of Dr. Nikolov. So let's go. So Lorenzo says, hi, Joe, can you ask the doctor if he is or at present or at any time in the past a Saba shareholder?
Shareholder, no.
No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. And Lorenzo said, I think you said no on Twitter, so thank you. And then Lily says, Dr. Boris Clinic is running 12-month open label studies, and then that goes into the 6th-month cognition maintenance study, or which is 6 months of a placebo-controlled study, which is people come off and have to stay on. Are you running that CMS as well as the open label?
Yes, it's part of the study.
Great, super. And then, so thank you. So then Lily's question is, how many patients have enrolled at your clinic, and how many have completed the 12-month open label, and how many have started CMS?
I'm not sure I can divulge that information.
Okay.
But probably we have a rate of 5%.
Okay, great. Thank you. And when did Dr. Boris Clinic start the CMS trial?
I believe we started in 2020. But I'm not sure which one.
I think they're asking when did the first patient go from open label to enrolling in the randomized portion?
Oh, around May of 2021.
May of 2021. Thank you. Yep. And then Rayner says, are there any restrictions because of COVID on the progress of the studies?
Yes, unfortunately, COVID has put a big hold on a lot of things, including participation in research. Patients just don't feel confident to go out of their homes or feel threatened.
Wow.
Though we have been opened throughout the pandemic, continuously, and we've been seeing patients. We had a couple of cases in which patients need to be seen somewhere because of whatever reasons, but we're trying to be here to continue with the studies we carry.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that insight. Appreciate it. And then Justin says, can you comment on staff experience in the ADAS-Cog scoring and the likelihood of placebo effect or bias improving ADAS-Cog scores from baseline at 12 months?
Well, there is ADAS-Cog. Okay, ADAS-Cog is the standard instrument used for psychometric testing. We have several staff members that administer it, and they have been certified by the major psychometric companies in research, like Bioclinica, Verasai, Medavante, and others, and have been doing it for many years. As such, they have certificates also, obviously, from them. The placebo effect is a situation and not really applying in this case because patients know that they're taking the real drug, but the possible effect that they think that they're getting better, it's a possibility and needs to be evaluated and taken into consideration.
Yep. Thank you for that honesty. I'll also point out, as Mr. Barbier, the CEO, says, there's no placebo effect in biomarkers. So there was biomarkers taken.
That is true.
Yeah. Yep. So
that is totally true.
Yep. Thank you. And then Rainer asks, so thank you so much for those anecdotes. That I love hearing that. That's such, it lifts spirits to hear about people starting to cook again. That's so nice to hear. Rainer asks, how about safety, and then how about tolerability? Any problems you're seeing?
We haven't seen any major problems.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Danny Duong says, thank you, Dr. Nikolov, for speaking to us and participating in these groundbreaking trials. Can you offer any comments regarding the pace of patient enrollment for phase 3? I'm so sorry. So Danny, they're not actually in doing a phase 3. He actually commented on that earlier. So sorry. Dr. Nikolov, thank you so much for your time. What is your response to the FUD claims that trial patients are cherry-picked and coaxed to perform worse on their first ADAS-Cog test? Now, I don't believe you addressed some of this, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I don't believe that to be true.
Thank you.
And I don't know how you're going to cherry-pick that.
And then I don't know if you can comment on breakthrough therapy designation, but we're getting a question on that. So thank you, Dr. Nikolov. Could FDA grant breakthrough therapy designation based on the cognition maintenance study, the 6-month extension, the placebo extension? If so, what would be required? 100 or 200 patients, 6-month or 12-month data? Has the trial enrolled 100 or 200 patients? If so, when? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the phase 3 trial, and I don't believe that can be granted based on the current trial. Maybe the phase 3 trial would lead to more information and more results that can lead for submission for breakthrough designation.
Okay, great. And then Lorenzo says, who monitors patient selection criteria compliance?
Okay, so this is a good question. In research, I can say that we are one of the most monitored and controlled sectors of industry, let's put it that way, because all the sponsors send representatives of theirs called clinical research associates or monitors that review our work and put their notes and comments on each one of them. And they present a report to the sponsor and us with the required, if any, things that needs to be changed or to check on our work. So basically, everything that happens here is reviewed by the sponsor, including Kansawa. And I was reading some we never saw a monitor here. This is such a big lie that I can't even imagine it. You know, one of the monitor comes every month, almost month and a half here.
Okay, monitor comes every month. Interesting. Thank you for that insight. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. And then, how much do selected patients get paid?
Patients get paid based on the informed consent, which is approved by the IRB, which is called Independent Review
Oh, interesting.
Board.
Okay.
So to meet the criteria of informed consent, so people are not manipulated to participate or anything of the sort, they need to be fair, compensated, or not. But if you don't get compensated, people will not participate, and it's acceptable for the IRB, who controls this trial or any other trial in the industry, that patients are compensated, including their caregivers.
Good.
Because they take time of their busy schedule in many instances, and they need to pay for gas to come here. They need to have other expenses that they otherwise won't have. So it's perfectly acceptable in every study,
Yes.
in every indication,
Yes.
in every country, actually.
In every country.
That is,
yeah, interesting. And it's an independent board that is that the way it is in Europe? Is an independent board that also decides how much they get paid?
in Europe, it's a little bit different. Actually, the standard here is, to me, is better because an independent board exists that reviews that. In many cases in Europe, it's a board within the same company that's supposed to be independent, but how independent they are, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But in here in the United States, it's an independent board, yes, and they do review everything very in detail.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, thank you, doctor, says Jake. Thank you, doctor. Can you tell us the percentage of those approved for the trial versus the number of people screened?
Okay, so this is I'm not familiar with the entire trial, but I can speak to our company. So we have around 10% screen fail rate, because again, we pre-screen. When we do the pre-screening, we look for specific situations and indications for Alzheimer. So we basically invite into the study patients that we think have Alzheimer. So after that, when they go through a screening process, they may, fail the additional criteria for the study, and they will not be enrolled.
Okay.
In many Alzheimer's studies, just so people know, the screen fail rate is around 90%, which means that people have screened, let's say, 10 patients and enrolled one.
Right.
And this is how the industry is for Alzheimer, because it's very difficult to diagnose an Alzheimer patient without the PET scan or the lumbar puncture, which are not done routinely.
Wow. Interesting. Thank you very much. Then Anthony says, would you apply a family member to Cassava Sciences trial if you would have the chance to?
Sure. If I have a father or mother with Alzheimer, that will be the trial that I'm going to invite him to.
Thank you. And then Danny says, thank you for speaking to us today. It's so important to counter the false attacks. Have the QCM reports impacted your clinic financially?
I believe they have. I'm considering action, actually legal action.
I don't blame you. Can you please tell us the role of CRAs in ADAS-Cog scores?
Well, the CRAs cannot change the score because everything is recorded. They can just monitor it and confirm that this is indeed the score. Because what happens is when we do the ADAS-Cog measurement, that's recorded, and then we enter it into a database that Cassava has access to, so they can check it and compare it. And so the CRA monitors whether the data entered into the database is the same as we have here.
Thank you. And then, just so I don't look like I skipped this one, I think you said this, but Doug Barnes asks, any safety and tolerability concerns?
We haven't seen serious safety issues.
Thank you. And then Mark says, I hope you have a great day. Can you ask does Simufilam, was Simufilam the first drug to show improvement as observed by a caregiver? Is this the first drug you know of to show improvement by the caregivers telling you the patients are getting better?
It's not really the first, but in this level, maybe yes.
At this level, okay, thank you. Can I ask, what are you able at liberty to divulge any others?
There is other drugs in development. As I said, we participate in other Alzheimer studies. We've seen improvement, but they're double blind, so I really don't know and can't say whether they're related to a drug or the placebo effect or whatever.
Sure. Thank you. And then SMNB says, can the doctor give us a percentage of participants who have a cognitive improvement?
I'm not sure, but it's more than 50%, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. And then Anthony says, will there be a lawsuit against people who tried to taint your reputation with libel and defamation and lies?
That's my goal, actually. I'm discussing that with a law company right now.
Interesting. And then Leon says, is Dr. Boris running any Alzheimer's drug trials other than Simufilam?
Yes, we do. We run actually another 7 trials right now.
7, wow. And then Mark's asking, thank you very much. I'll try to keep going a little bit rapid fire here. You've given us a lot of your time, and we're about halfway through. Mark's asking, can you elaborate on the chain of custody and what to do to ensure validity of data?
Very well. That's a very good question. Thank you for that. That was one of the questions the SEC discussed with me. And I'm going to tell you something that a lot of people apparently don't know about the industry. Again, this is one of the most controlled industry in the world, chain of custody. Okay, so when a sample is taken from a patient, it's sent to the lab. So the chain custody is clear from here to the lab. The lab processes it and sends the results to us and sponsor. Simple.
Interesting. It's simple. Yeah. Thank you very much, and thanks for emphasizing how controlled the industry is. And Mark, thank you for the question. So, what can we do is the next question to help recruit? What can we do to help recruit in general? I guess you don't need any help these days, but the FUD, there is a lot of FUD out there. What can we do to help recruit is the question.
Well, to me, Alzheimer is a very important topic and a very important area of work. Yes, if whoever thinks that they can help, they can just spread the word to their family members.
Yep.
and talk to the doctors and see where would be the closest site that they can invite their family members to go into a study.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then another question about the improvement from Keyshawn. How much improvement did the drug demonstrate from your analysis?
Well, I'm not sure if I can divulge that,
Sure.
but there were some public results from Cassava, which we observed here as well. So I think that another around 10% improvement, it's a fair thing to some patients.
So your firsthand experience was roughly consistent with the published results. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I think you might have cut out there for a second. Did you say yes?
Yes, I did say yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep. Okay. And then Dr. Nikolov, are you familiar with the scientific issues raised in the citizens petition, and can you comment on their veracity?
I'm familiar, but I personally got lost in all those pages, so I have no clue what they're talking about.
Thank you. I think that's the point of all those pages. I think it's your
Yes.
Yes. And then we answered this one. You talked a little.
But I can say a comment though. Can I say a comment to that?
Sure.
Because I think it's fair to say that when you publish an article in a peer-reviewed journal, scientific journal, that's what that happens. it's reviewed by peers. So it can only be published actually if it's reviewed by peers,
Right.
your peers.
Right.
So if there are articles that are published which are cited, and they were, then they were reviewed by peers.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So in this specific case, other peers show up and say something else. Well, I don't know. It just kind of seems very weird to me. But I guess everything's possible, right?
Well, I guess we looked at their financial motivations were divulged eventually, but then Hierophant says, Dr. Nikolov, can you comment on how many? So another question about the dropout rate here. Can you comment on how many patients have dropped out of the open label study and for what reasons this occurred?
There is patients that didn't want to continue in our site in the 6 months extension or 12 months extension for various reasons.
Okay, sure, fair enough. And then, in your professional opinion, is Cassava Sciences and their drug Simufilam a fraud?
Not at all.
Thank you. And then Doug says, what are the restrictions on other drugs and supplements during the trial that are presumed to help with memory impairment?
There is a restriction for certain medication to be taken during you take Simufilam, and there is prohibited medications that patients cannot take while on the study, and this is similar to a lot of other studies in Alzheimer's.
Okay.
But just so the people understand, there is no medication that has shown improvement in Alzheimer that is approved.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And then Hierophant asks, Dr. Nikolov, are you being financially compensated for this interview?
No.
I'm not compensating him if that's what you're asking. Thank you, Dr. Boris, for your time. As I understand, CRAs monitor ADAS-Cog testing to ensure integrity and adjust scores. They are a third party. Can you comment on the role of CRAs?
CRA has a very important role in every clinical trial. So they are basically monitoring our work. And we rely on them for help in many situations to let us know if the protocol changes, when the protocol changes, and help us with training as far as what the new changes are and how to implement it into our work. But also their most important work is to monitor our work. So they basically confirm that our work is done appropriately according to the protocol and enter it into the electronic data capturing EDC system that is used properly.
Okay, great. And we're coming. It's 10:45. We're coming up on. We've got just a couple more here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you. Does Dr. Nikolov see any possibility at any point that Cassava could have manipulated the already published open label study results after the fact? Any possibility?
No.
Okay. Yep. No.
No, not at all, because the data is already captured into the electronic data capturing system. So there is no way to manipulate the data.
Okay. And then I'm not sure I understand Doug's question here. What is the number needed to treat for this drug?
Oh, I guess he's referring so the study can be having some results.
Okay.
Well, the phase 2 study that we're finishing is already enrolled sufficient numbers of patients.
Yep.
And it's closed for enrollment.
Yes.
So the new studies are the phase 3 studies.
Yep.
That will need more patients to determine the validity of the results.
Great point. If you you or your loved ones want to get Simufilam, they have to enroll in the phase 3s now. So that the link to that
Right.
is in the description for this video. Thank you very much. Yep. And then what chance do you give Sava of drug of being approved?
In my opinion, it's high.
Excellent. Thank you.
I mean, okay, I wanted to say something, but I guess not say it.
Yep.
But yes, I think it's very high because the results I see are impressive.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Can the doctor confirm again he would choose Sava trial over others for his family member if required?
Sure, I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We sort of had this, but can you share examples of real life behavior and cognitive improvements in patients who went through the phase 2 trial?
We had, for example, another patient who was a radio host. So he stopped working as that, but then through the study started doing it again.
Awesome. That's terrific. Yeah, if he has the wherewithal to host a show, hey.
Yeah, that's hard, Joe.
That's great news. Thank you so much. Thank you. UK says, do you know any other drug existing in the market today that matches the safety cognition improvement shown by Simufilam?
Safety cognition improvement. So in order to talk about cognition improvement, it needs to be a double-blind placebo trial.
Yep.
So the FDA standard is very clear. The results from a double-blind placebo trial would need to be presented in order to determine the cognition improvement. As far as safety, yes, safety is good, and there is other drugs that have similar safety.
Okay, thank you. And then Alvando says, Dr. Nikolov, if the two journals have publicly declared that cassava has not altered any images, why has the citizens' petition to halt the trials still not been dismissed?
Well, it's a process, in my opinion. Just because it's accepted in the FDA doesn't mean that the FDA agrees with it. They need to review it. So that's, I guess, a process for them. I'm not familiar what the time frame of that is, but I'm pretty sure soon they'll probably come up with some decision or statement.
Okay, thank you. And then Dr. Elizabeth Bick is from Microbiome questioning these Western blots. The question is, comment on Bick. Thanks.
I'm not familiar with her work.
Okay.
Yep. And I don't know about Western blots.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Blots.
Oh, you're not alone. Thank you. Has Dr. Nikolov been contacted by the SEC regarding accusations against his company and cassava?
I was contacted by the SEC and I requested to speak with them. As such, we had an interview or questions and answer session.
They contacted you first, and then you said
they
contacted you, and you said, "I want to talk to you." Is that right?
Correct. They contacted me to request to preserve documents.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that candor. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jim says, is there a minimum number of patients that must be enrolled before a given trial will begin?
Given trial to begin, no. To have results, yes. And there is a certain number of patients based on the statistical analysis that is needed.
Yep.
Each study has different number of patients that needs to be enrolled in order to do the analysis of the data correctly.
So you don't get like 10 patients and then dose them all at the same time. You dose each one as soon as they're ready after the screening.
That is correct. Yep. They go gradually. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. And then this is the last one we have. Is the doctor prohibited from investing in any companies that they run trials for? If not, why would the doctor not own any cassava shares?
We actually have we're not prohibited, but we have an obligation to disclose it.
Yes.
I haven't invested, honestly, because I don't have available funds to invest.
And again, thank you so much for that candor. I really appreciate that. Dr. Nikolov, this was just such an incredibly terrific interview. I thank you so much for being so honest and open.
Thank you.
Yep. And one last question. You were so honest about the SEC. Have there been any other government agencies in connection with cassava that have contacted you with the cassava connection?
No, none.
No. Okay.
There is a lot of lawyers snooping around.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Lawyers snooping around. Interesting. I'm not surprised. Okay. So more good news. But thank you so much for all of your honesty and your openness to take all these questions and just answer so openly. I really appreciate it. There's so many. I didn't click on all the thank yous. There's so many thank yous for all of this. So thank you so much on behalf of everyone else as well.
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you
Yeah.
and express our side.
Yeah, excellent. You sure deserve it. You sure deserve it. So with that, I know you're very busy. We'll end the interview and say thanks very much. So great to meet you, and thanks very much for your time, and thanks for coming to speak
Thank
with
you.
us today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye bye. All right. How about that interview with Dr. Nikolov? That was really terrific. I was really glad that he had the chance to tell his side of the story. Which, my goodness, it was. It turns out we really needed to hear his side of the story. So thanks everyone for being here. We'll talk about this later on the other channel. Thanks so much. I'll end it here.